It's the BBPTV show since 2012, where amazing guests share their digital adventures. Who will we meet today? Small biz influencer, up-and-coming trendsetter, accomplished author? You never know who'll be dropping by. And now, here's your host, Elaine Lindsay, the bionic glamourpreneur with Truel Social Media, who's the second most curious person on the planet.
Hi there. I'm so happy to be here today and really looking forward to introducing you to my incredible guest. Absolutely incredible human being as far as I'm concerned, but she is also an absolutely radiant guest that I think you're going to not just enjoy, but find really, really deep and helpful and useful for a lot of different things that you may not have expected at the beginning of this interview. Isabelle Giroday is today's guest. She is such a, I'm going to say, multi-potentialite. It's something that's come up a lot in the past year with certain people, and I really think Isabelle fits the bill. You can decide. I'm going to go through a few things about Isabelle. She's a soul scribe, a truth seeker, a PR expert, an international best-selling author, a publisher, a speaker. She's actually a longtime journalist, and she regularly contributes to Huffington Post, USA Today, and she is also a talk show host with Business Innovators Radio and has a phenomenal new TV channel, which is BeXo TV. We're going to talk about BeXo because to raise awareness about children that are quote unquote different, she founded BexoKids.org, something that we believe, I know, is very, very close to her heart. She's a wonderful mom of three who, oh my God, this just sounds so marvelous, currently lives in the country in France. How incredible is that? She gets to stargaze. She's into fine art photography, and I have to say, quite an accomplished photographer herself, and does lots of cooking. Not only that, ready for this? She's written 4 books, best-selling books, I might add. All of these things to say, Isabelle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Elaine. It's great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Is it really me that you're talking about? It's such a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you very much.
It's wonderful to have you here, and something that I didn't say because I kind of wanted to put this in its own bubble. Isabelle is deeply into hypnotherapy. And can I say transformational hypnotherapy, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. All of the other pieces, I firmly believe, work together to give her probably the best background you could ever have to be a hypnotherapist. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Elaine. Yes, it does make sense. It does work very well with everything because, as everyone will understand, if you don't feel that you're worth much, if you don't have confidence, if you don't feel that you're very lovable and that, you know, you're in here for a reason on this planet, well, it's going to be very difficult for you to show up. So if you're looking at being more visible online, you know, you're not going to be very much inclined to be speaking from stage, doing videos, writing books and talking about them. So for this, you need to come from a place of confidence and self-worth. And when it comes to our EXO kids, EXO stands for extraordinary. And because, like my son says, EXO means from somewhere else. And I really love it when he comes out with his with his little nuggets. It's the same thing. All children, to grow happy, healthy, and thrive, need to feel confident, need to feel that they're worth something, that they matter, that they're seen and heard. It's mini us, right? It's just we carry our wounds, and we, you know, try to not show them too much as we move around and go about our lives. But the wounds are there, and for the EXO kids, they have something in addition to the normal loads that most of us carry. It's that because they feel different, they may feel they don't belong. They may feel that because they've been bullied, you know, that they're stupid or that they're worthless. And that obviously creates chaos, misery, suicide, and just terrible difficulties in their lives. And it doesn't have to be so. And, you know, it's very important to feel that we belong. That goes for every human being on this planet. Way back when we were in tribes, if you didn't belong to the tribe anymore, if you were outcast, basically that was a death sentence, because there was no way you were going to survive outside the tribe. That's so ingrained. I mean, that belief, that feeling is so wired in our brains that as soon as we feel that we are outcast, that we don't belong to the group, we feel that, you know, basically the brain says, okay, you're in danger. You know, your life is going to come to an end. And obviously it's not going to come to an end, but what you tend to go into is depression, and, you know, cutting yourself off from joy and from all the beauty in life. And it doesn't have to be this way. So that's why I believe transformational hypnotherapy is a wonderful tool, because it helps people just go back to who they were originally when they were born. They knew they were lovable, and they knew they were, you know, special. And it just gives you back what you actually had from the beginning. It was just taken away because of life circumstances, and led you to believe, you know, something else about yourself, and something totally untrue. So this is why I love this.
And the hypnotherapy, did this come out of your general consideration and love for people, or did this come out of EXO Kids?
Okay, so I think that I'm the type of person who always turns every stone. You know, I don't leave any stone unturned. I said it the other way around. So when I have something that looks like it needs to solve, you know, a situation, I want to go to the bottom of things until I've solved it. And the one thing I haven't been able to do with all my PR clients is to help them overcome the fear of being visible, speaking in public, and all this. And it's a very it's a very damaging fear in that sense, because it keeps them from being the great people that they are, and to show up and talk about what they do and help the people that they want to help. So that's really damaging their business. You know, the clientele is much smaller than it could be, and so on. And then when it came to EXO Kids, I found out about EXO Kids because I realized one day there was something different about my youngest son. And I did not want to go into all the labels that society really quickly puts on children that are different, because I don't believe in different, you know, first, I don't believe in labels. For me, different means good. Be different is great. Different is awesome. So I don't see this as negative. And in France, you know, if you're different and if you have, you know, trouble paying attention at school, and if you're not, you know, socializing like everybody, you get all kinds of labels, and people try to tell you that you need to go to a psychiatrist and take medicine. And I was like, no, this is not going to do. I don't believe in this. There's got to be something else. So I started doing a lot of research, and thank God I am proficient in English, because it allowed me to tap into amazing resources that are in the North American continent, for most of it, and some in the UK too, showing me that a lot of these issues can be solved through movement, through working with the body, the energy body, meaning the meridians that we know has been around for over 3,000 years, with the Chinese, and it can be done with food and you know, mindfulness, you know, just paying attention, and all these things. So I said, okay, this is I'm going to buy this. This is all good. But there was one piece that was still missing, and the piece was the self-worth. And I know, because of my own story, and I can see it in the kids and the teenagers I help, that the self-worth and confidence issues are huge. Yeah. And I wanted really that one tool to turn that around, because it's fine, you know, to get rid of everything else that you want to get rid, and from that point of view, function more in accordance to the societal norm, I will say. That's fine, but you still need to feel good about yourself if you want to feel good about your life and you know, thrive. So that's how I wanted, and you know, I came across this. I really felt that this was the piece that was missing, and indeed, it's been absolutely true. And I'm very glad to say that Marissa Peer's training in transformational hypnotherapy, and not only is an amazing training because it gives you that tool, but it is also at the forefront of what psychotherapy is all about. I mean, she's revolutionizing.
Oh, yeah.
What's the point of talking to someone for 10 years once a week if you can solve a problem in 1 or 2 sessions? You know, I mean, it's obviously, you can tell immediately what solution you want. When you're in pain, you want this to be over with really quickly, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's really important to go over that piece. Without self-confidence, there isn't self-worth. And the two are really how you show up in the world. So if you don't have them, automatically visibility just isn't possible. And that, to me, makes so much sense that you have all this PR training. You were a journalist, you are a journalist. You understand those requirements. And because of the incredible human you are, you've now gone out and found a way to solve that, so that, you know, starting with your child, you can help people completely show up, be visible. Because
oh, absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No.
Oh, absolutely. Because I was going to say, showing up is not just about adults. Showing up is about every human being, and the little ones or the young ones, they need to be able to show up just the same. They need to be show up just in the human being. And that's exactly, you nailed it, Elaine. It's so important to remember. That's why it all comes together for me very well. I don't make a huge difference between adults and children in that regards. I mean, everybody needs to be able to stand on their 2 feet and feel great about themselves in order to show up, to bring their gifts to the world. And everyone has their own gifts to come with. So why do you think when, for example, we talk a lot about how autistic children or people tend to withdraw, why do you think they don't want to be visible? I can tell you why, because it sucks out there for them.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. excuse my French. And so, but we can turn that around completely, but not just with the food and the movement and the you know, inner work. We can turn that first with the confidence and the self-worth. The rest is perfect, and it works and it's wonderful, but you got to have that self-worth and self-confidence, like you said, Elaine. It's key. It's like, it's the number one.
Absolutely. And I think by extension, we have to educate everyone else that each of us is different. There's a reason for that. If we were all exactly the same, we'd be bored, like so bored. And you know, I tend to think if humans were perfect, there'd be two, period, end of sentence. So I don't think as a species we were meant to be perfect. Perfection to me, I hate to use the word boring, but it is boring. When you look at, you know, the people they use for models, and they don't use them because they're perfect. They use them because they have an interesting or jarring asymmetry that speaks to the camera. And it's often people who, for one reason or another, do have self-confidence and understand self-worth. Those are the people you can capture on camera that are right within the photos. You can see a difference, I firmly believe, between people who are confident and people who are not in picture.
Oh yeah, that I agree with you, Elaine. I would say in life in general, there is a huge difference between the ones that are confident and own their worth and others in all walks of life. And it makes a difference when you apply for higher education, when you apply for a job, when you go for a job interview. It makes a difference when you work in a company, or if you're an entrepreneur, how you show up with clients, how you show up on a board meeting. It makes a difference every step of the way. It makes a difference when you're meeting your you know, the love of your life. Wouldn't you rather meet the love of your life both being confident instead of open wounds that, you know, sooner or later are going to pester and create problems? It's better if everybody is happy with themselves first, then they can be happy and loving with somebody else. So absolutely, I think it's a foundation. It would be wonderful if we could just click our fingers and it would be true for everyone on this planet.
Oh, that would be wonderful, incredibly wonderful. But I want to go a little into, before we talk about BeXo TV, I'd like us to go a little bit into your EXO Kids organization. And I know we've talked before, but a lot of concerns that people have now are about screen time with children and kids playing violent games. And that must be such an assault for children who are hypersensitive, is what I believe part of being on the spectrum, for one thing, is. That has to be in that hyper vigilant state, because we all have that lizard brain that drives us when we are in that vigilant state. We are constantly ready for fight or flight. And that,
absolutely.
Yeah, and that has to be, I mean, think of some little, you know, 3 to 6 year old child, and then take that forward into teen years. When you're always kind of on edge like that, it can't be comfortable.
Oh, absolutely, Elaine. It's not comfortable for anyone, and it's not comfortable for adults either.
Yeah.
But as adults, we have different ways of coping.
Yes.
So that's why it's different than children. It's not necessarily better though, because some cope with addictions, you know. So they go into the stress mode to relax into something that's an addictive mode. I'm not sure that's such a great win, but nevertheless, when it comes to children, all children usually soak up everything that they can from the environment. That's how they learn how to fit in the tribe. And that's how they learn how to, you know, grow up in the environment that they're in. When it comes to kids, extraordinary children are usually much more sensitive. So it's just exponential, the way they soak up something, the way their senses soak up things, which often leads to overload. And which is why we have to care extra for these children and teens, that they do have a balanced lifestyle, I would say, in the sense that they do get enough sleep, and that the sleep is of quality. And you don't get quality sleep if you fall asleep in your bed with, you know, a screen in front of you, a phone or a tablet. A lot of teens, you know, they go and they're on the phone until the absolute last second. Now, it's well known now that the blue light is not good for our sleeping cycles, for example. But, you know, without going into huge details, that's exactly what you said. The fact that the attention is solicited, the sort of like stressed kind of attention, because when you're playing games, you're always on the edge. And when you're on the edge, you're stressed, you're in the fight or flight configuration, where you know, you just really, the body is like so so stressed up that it starts malfunctioning, functioning less, which is why you can't, for example, focus that well, or concentrate, pay attention. And this is, you know, a lot of EXO kids are hyper-focused people. So when they're focused on something, it's like the whole world could fall apart. They don't hear.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times I call them to the table when the food is ready, even if they're just drawing or reading a book. So not to mention if it's the screen time, then it's really difficult. I'm not saying no screen time. I'm saying balance.
Yeah.
I'm saying every day needs to mean that there is also downtime. There is time where nothing happens, so that you can daydream. There is time for all of us to do that. And you lead by example. So parents also have to cut down on screen time, take time off, just sit, you know, and just do nothing. Just have a hug, hug time. And there are different ways to hug, because believe me, there are different ways EXO kids like to be hugged, and the whole thing can be explored. Yeah. Because they are so sensitive to touch, and not one is like the others. You have how does that child actually work? You know, what does it like? What does it not like? And it's the same thing for adults. I learned a lot about myself when I studied how my children were actually functioning. And I was like, oh yeah, now I get it. Why I just really don't like when it's very noisy. I mean, basketball practice for my children are like excruciating painful for me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me get some earplugs.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
I go into the grocery store, and neon lights really, really bother me. Now I know that that's why I get so tired. So I just wear earplugs. I mean, I can still hear what's going on, but I'm not bothered anymore. So when I come back, I'm not exhausted. I go into, you know, meetings the same way. Like now, I know. So when parents talk to me about their teenager and their kids, I'm like, okay, try earplugs, try camp, try quiet time. Don't have stuff on all the time at home. Don't fire 50 questions every 5 minutes, because you're just overwhelming your kid. You know, take your time, slow down. And you know, it seems so simple, but sometimes it's the simplest things in life that actually do us really good.
Absolutely. And I believe because we have come so far from, you started this conversation about tribes and people not feeling part of the tribe. Well, we used to be tribes even within our families. We had extended family. No one was left, solo handling a child, or, the young parents with little kids often had backup, aunts, uncles, grandparents, what have you. We have now moved so far into the nuclear family that people are like tiny, tiny units, and everybody has to sort of fill in for those additional pieces in the family that were often the buffers that gave the parents a little bit of a break, or gave the kid a little bit of a break from the parent.
Yeah.
Because that's important too sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad that we've gone so far because we are so industrialized. We became everything sped up so fast. Most families, many families have both parents are working because it's a necessity. It's not a matter of choice, not wanting to be home. And quite often, I know, parents feel bad about the fact that they're screen timing their child. That's sort of a babysitting device. But we got to remember that they too need that downtime. And sometimes it can be the only way that you can try to take a second for yourself, which isn't good. And, part of the whole thing, I think it tied up with that self-confidence and self-worth. I think what we need to have is empathy, because if we cannot empathize with others, then all the self-confidence in the world is not going to help us, because we won't have the interaction that we all need. And that's, I think, a piece that sadly we're losing, because every generation since forever, always said, oh, I don't understand that next generation. Oh my God, I don't understand their stuff, what have you. But we're not making the attempts anymore the way families used to try and involve all the generations on a regular basis to be sure that everybody's needs were being met.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Elaine. And I think perhaps we need to reconfigure and redesign the family units and I would say, communities around us, because the society needs to change the way it operates, so to accommodate these single parents that are in great numbers. The fact, as you're saying, that families don't meet up that often, or I would say the ties are much looser, perhaps than before. And it's important to find new solutions and new ideas to accommodate these changes. And of course, I always say that we have to start with ourselves and be responsible as adults and parents, and see how do we function in our everyday life. And, we all are very busy.
Yeah.
But for some, there is always time for yet another message, yet another Facebook post, yet another, I'm not saying social media is bad. I'm just saying, be careful that you don't let others steal away that precious time that you have. I sometimes, social media takes away children and teenagers' childhood. I know teens don't like to say they're kids, but to me they're kids.
Yeah.
Because it steals their time off. It steals dream time off, drawing time, reading time, hanging out time. And guess what? Hanging out with adults. Because as you were saying, it's about interaction, and empathy is also learned through interaction between, you know, child and adult. Child, it could be the parent, it could be a benevolent caretaker, but this is also where if you show empathy for your child and your teen, they're going to learn what it's all about, and they're going to show it back. So it's really important. It's about how we show up in the world. That's how I believe we can change things around. How can we help our neighbors or in our community? You know, who needs help? If there's somebody that is struggling, they need, as you say, some time off for themselves. Can I take on board their child for an afternoon or for a few hours? How can I help out? There are a lot of communities that are starting now where there are multi-generational. They're not necessarily families, like they don't have blood ties, but they try to stick together, multi-generational, and help each other out. And I think it's a great idea. It's a great initiative to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's beneficial for everyone, as long as it's with respect and appreciation and empathy. That's perfect.
Yeah, because I think every generation can bring something to the table.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that was always how we learned. That's how species, animals learn from the generations that came before them. You know, all of the basics that we sometimes think we just intrinsically know, well, we do. It's passed down from generations. Some things are, it's almost internal. You grow up knowing because everybody else knew. It's like that, what is it, the monkey thing. The monkeys on the island, one monkey learned to peel the banana, and within
everybody
all the monkeys know how to peel the banana. Well, we're at a point where we're into the third generation now that grew up with technology, that grew up with being surrounded. So the latest kids are coming in with an innate knowledge that those in my baby boomer group certainly do not have or did not have. And people one generation past me, well, they can remember a time when they didn't even have the luxuries that are now considered ancient artifacts like landline phones that I grew up with. So there's always that cycle of growth and change and learning. I think what's happened and why we're kind of off kilter is that technology, instead of coming in like the Industrial Revolution and taking, a fair amount of time to get us any further ahead, well, in the last 20 years, we have advanced so far. It's almost like another species.
No, it's true. But we always have the choice. And we have the choice, so we can choose to decide when we want that technology and not let it rule our lives completely. So we can choose to turn off that phone or to not pick up that conversation because it's not urgent. We can choose to read a bedtime story, play a game, just chat about the day. We can do that, and the rest of the time be super busy. That's fine. But it's important. I didn't know how to play because I grew up having to be grown up too fast. I didn't, really relate to playing much. So for the longest time, play for me was like, oh, what a waste, I'm so busy. And then I realized with my kids, it's like, no, there's something going on here. I need to know more about this. And now, you know, we regularly do something together and it's about playing, because play allows you to tap into your intuition, your creativity, your inner self. So it's actually a wonderful dimension and very important for every human being. And one way to access it is through play. And now it's really wonderful, because even though some of my kids are much older, we still find time to play backgammon or to do something fun together, laugh, and I love it, because it cuts us off from the everyday routine, and it builds bonds. And it doesn't matter if it's not blood related people, it could be your friends, you know.
And yeah, because those bonds are incredibly important. They actually instill safety and you know, feelings of calm and feelings of belonging, which of course is so incredibly important. And yeah, belonging doesn't necessarily mean blood.
No, and maybe that's what we can teach, that with the new technologies that we have, that you can have bonds with people. Like you and I, we're not in the same continent, we're talking right this minute. You can actually form friendship in many different countries. And thanks to technology, you can keep in contact, chat, have fun, watch things together, and create strong bonds with people, even though they're not in the same room. So that's really wonderful. We can show that technology for that is great.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's not that we're just knocking technology. We're not. Okay. I love my tech toys. I guess I'm a little bizarre, because as much as I totally love tech and getting to meet people all around the world, a number of which I have already followed up and gone and met them in person. So that's coming.
Yeah.
But for me, the phone, as much as I love it, the phone does not enter my bedroom. The phone is left at night. It's in the main living room or on the desk in the office, because I don't think it's appropriate. And that became sort of a rule that the phone has certain hours, because you can feel yourself becoming kind of a slave to the technology. And when you use it appropriately and you enjoy it without those, you know, extraneous pulls, making the choice to decide when the technology is useful is what I think we have to teach. Because I don't know about your kids, but I do know if you catch some child in the middle of a game and you turn it off, you better watch your fingers and toes.
Yeah, they're going to get very upset. For sure. So it's better to define the rules at the beginning so that everybody knows what's going on and they're not taken by surprise. But instead of you know, I think it's nice to suggest something else. So, you know, you say, okay, you have this time now for your game. And then when you finish, why don't you and I do you know, whatever they like to do together, you know, offer the opportunity for an interaction with the child, with the teen, and you know, something that they will appreciate, maybe something as old-fashioned as making a meal or baking a cake, or I don't know, it doesn't have to be something very special or unique. It can be something very simple, but offer the opportunity for interaction. I think that would be a good way to do things differently. So both the parent and child, for example, can have their me time, the downtime, tablet time, phone time, screen time, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And then you decide that after that, we'll do something together. That's a nice balance. We're coming back to balance again.
And leading by example like that, I think makes much more of an impression. When you're actually,
I mean, if you're on your phone all the time, the child is going to be like, why you on the screen all the time? Why shouldn't I? You know, so there again, it comes to responsibility child. And it's funny, I'm not an expert on parenting. This is just what I experience every day. But, you know, I have so many parents come to me, oh, you know, my child this and my teen that. And sometimes it's just about having a simple conversation, looking at what, you know, how they behave as adults, the choices they're making or the decisions they're not taking, because they, you know, try to defer and hope that things are going to
work themselves out on their own.
Yeah, work on their own. And that's not how it works, unfortunately.
No, and, you know, that get along to go along, or go along to get along, doesn't really work in the end. But I think it's important too for the parents, as the adults, you have to show the children that it's their choice. You make a choice.
Absolutely.
To be positive. You make a choice to do a good thing. You make the choice to balance your life. And I think that's critically important, because, you know, I was saying something about being bored, and quite often kids will say they're bored. You know, they have nothing to do, where I'm bored. Being bored is not the end of the world, but even being bored, you can still make the choice to be happy.
Oh, absolutely. I love that, Elaine. That's very important. And we're coming back to choice. And as soon as one can, it's great to have children understand that they are responsible for how they feel, how they act and react, and give them the tools to be able to do that, obviously, is key too. And for the teens, I mean, honestly, it's like with the adults, because a lot of adults feel miserable, unhappy, depressed, sad, angry. And, you know, there is a choice. And the choice is that you can also decide to feel otherwise. And there are tools for that too. So
absolutely. And it's not, I don't think either one of us are saying that other emotions are good or bad. Okay, there are times where you can feel angry, and it can serve a purpose. It can take you on to great discoveries. It's not allowing that emotion to take over. You always need to be in a place of choice, I believe, and we need to teach kids that they are responsible to decide on their own emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And give them the means to make those decisions, obviously. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Yep.
Well, this has been incredible, and I do thank you very much, because I know that you're 6 hours ahead of me, so the time is much later for you. The one thing I always ask my guests for at the end of a show, I'd like you to perhaps leave the audience with one little nugget, something they can implement in their lives immediately, either personal, business, or perhaps for their children.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to suggest a very simple exercise that you can teach your children.
Perfect.
That allows things to sort of calm down. And you simply close your eyes and you breathe a free breath, just very calmly. And you imagine that from the bottom of your spine, you imagine that you have a stream of light going down to the center of the earth. And as you're doing so, you're anchoring yourself. You can even imagine, if you want to play with children, that they become like a tree trunk with roots going all the way down to the center of the earth. And then you just take a full breath, feeling this way. Feeling like everything in your day is just settling. A bit like the dust when you've moved it around and then you just let it settle again. And that just grounds us. And now when you're grounded, imagine that you're looking behind your closed eyes and decide to take back your energy from all past events, people, places, times. And you should feel that you're more focused behind your eyes. And then, you can just decide to open your eyes again. But it will settle you down and get you focused again if you've been a bit unnerved or if you've had a tough day. When you're ready to do your homework or go into a next meeting, and you sort of need a breather, but you don't really have time to, listen to relaxation exercise or whatever. You can do this anywhere, except when you're driving, obviously.
Yeah.
And operating machinery.
Yeah,
But
don't operate heavy machinery.
It's very quick. It's probably going to go totally unnoticed, even in public situations.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Isabelle.
You're welcome.
We also want to make sure that we know where people can reach you, and we will be putting up the links to Isabelle for her BeXo TV and for exokids.org. Where else can people get in touch with you?
Well, it's the easiest way to get in touch with me is those two, or you can also look me up on Facebook and message me if you want to reach out for me. It's a very easy way to get in touch with me. And I have a wonderful tribe of EXO leaders. If you want to join us, you're more than welcome. And that's a Facebook group. And we can't wait to have you there.
And we know that all of those links and more will be available down below on the page so that you'll be able to connect with Isabelle in whichever way you choose. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Isabelle. I so appreciate having you here. My guest, Isabelle Giroday, a multi-potentialite who is shedding her light all around the world. And so I am so appreciative of
Thank you so much. Thank you, Elaine. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with you on this show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm Elaine Lindsay, the glamopreneur with True Social Media and the host of BBP TV show. Until next time, make your day amazing.